I've worn the same cologne every day for the past 9 years. No, it's not because I particularly love the smell, not because I lost a dare when I was younger, and not because I'm allergic to any other smell. It's because of a drastic change that happened in my life, specifically dealing with my father. I've been lucky enough to have a great relationship with my dad. Ever since I was younger, we've bonded over things like sports, food, politics, and pretty much anything in between. One of my favorite memories with him was this night in January. We drove around, we stopped at the mall, he picked out an elegant navy suit. We had dinner at our favorite restaurant. We reminisced, we talked about life, we laughed. I remember telling him how one day I was gonna be rich and successful. All he could do was smile. He told me, "Inshallah, Habibi." God willing, my love, in Arabic. We ended that night watching our favorite movie, Invictus. I grew up very affluent. We had a big house, fancy cars, and many luxuries. Money felt endless, and I'll be the first to admit it, I was spoiled. 10 years ago, I experienced something that I had never experienced before: adversity. My dad was going on a business trip, and with his passport in one hand and his bag in the other, he called me into his room. He opened a drawer, and out came a bottle of cologne. He handed it to me, and he said I was his man, and that I had to take care of my mother and my sisters. My dad usually sprays his cologne on me for a special occasion, like a birthday or a wedding. So why was I getting my own bottle all of a sudden? More importantly, why was he so serious? He was just going on a routine trip to the Middle East, wasn't he? And then I started to realize that things weren't so routine. 3 weeks had passed, and he hadn't come back. I kept asking my mom, but to no avail. I remember standing at the kitchen next to the stove, looking up at my mom, upset and confused, a tear down my eye. And I asked her, "Mama, when is Baba coming back? I miss him." A tear goes down her eye. The lie of "he'll be back soon" had finally expired. She told me that he wouldn't be coming back. I then realized and learned that my dad, a physician who had successfully ran multiple clinics in the DC area, had his offices raided by the FBI on tax fraud claims. Everything was gone. There was nothing left to our name. And just like that, the wealth, prestige, and comfort were all gone. My dad's offices were shut down. His license was revoked. We lost our house. We lost our cars. We even lost a lot of friends. Everything was happening so quickly. I was confused, and I didn't have time to process any of it. I spent countless nights researching and looking up every document, every article, every file online, just to figure out what happened with my dad. I learned that a lot of the case was actually politically driven, targeting the work he did for the US government with the reconstruction of Iraq. It wasn't about the taxes. I knew this unfortunate truth, but I wasn't ready to share it. I had to actively lie to my closest friends, fearing the judgment my family would face if they knew the truth. If someone asked why we'd move houses, I'd say, "We like the smaller house." If someone asked where my dad was, well, he was on a business trip. It was weird not having my dad around. In Arab culture, when there's a family gathering and the men are sitting on one side, it's customary for the man of the house to introduce himself as a way of representing the family. A couple weeks after I heard about the news, we went to a family friend's house, and naturally, I went downstairs to hang out with the people my age. Until my mom called me up and she said I had to introduce myself to the men. And at 10 years old, I was representing the family. I was the man of the house, like my dad once told me. Then the cologne started to make sense. It was my enabler. It gave me comfort in what was an intimidating entrance into premature adulthood. Some of the men knew the situation, and they gave me a warm, comforting hug. Others were hesitant to even acknowledge it. And some demanded answers. A couple years ago, a friend of mine confronted me. He said, "I found this article online. Is your dad really working with Hezbollah?" I knew the article he was talking about. It was this piece of lazy journalism that said my dad had met with a Hezbollah official in Lebanon. The funny thing was he wasn't even in the country at the time they said he was. But there was no going back from that. It was hard to defend myself from a claim that strong. There was no lie or excuse I could come up with that hid my tracks. I was exposed, and the floodgates had finally opened. I had no other choice but to tell the truth. And so I did. It was the first time I had ever told someone the complete truth. I was scared. I've witnessed my dad tell his closest friends the complete truth, only for that to be the last time that they ever talked to one another. I was scared the same would happen to myself. I was fearful of the judgment, but most of all, I was fearful that I'd lose a friend. But my friend was supportive. He said I was brave, and he respected me for my decision. And just like that, a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, all at the hands of honesty. And that's when I realized I shouldn't keep hiding anymore. I started to implement a new policy of openness. You see, a lot of people try and hide their adversity as a way to protect themselves from being vulnerable, which naturally we all try and avoid. But the lies had built up too much, and I realized if I wanted to end the lying, I needed to own my struggle. I shared my story with my friends. They gave me a sense of comfort and home that I hadn't felt since my dad had left. Before, I always felt that there was a barrier in my relationships, no matter how close I got with someone. But as soon as I opened up, that barrier was gone. There wasn't a secret bearing over my head. I'm fortunate and thankful for everything that I have in life. I have a great group of friends, a group that I trust with everything. They were by me when no one else was. My father is still out of the country, and there are nights where I can't sleep because I'm excited and I dream of the day that one day he'll be at my graduation or he'll surprise me at my birthday. And there are nights where I think the opposite, that one day I'll wake up and I'll find out my dad was arrested or something worse. Nevertheless, we're in the legal process of bringing him back to the country that he deserves to be in a country where his voice deserves to be heard. But to be honest with you, I don't know what the future holds for us. I have two sisters. One is a soon-to-be lawyer, the other is an aspiring teacher, all under the guidance of my beautiful, brave, strong-willed mother. We are exhausted. We are frustrated, but we are surviving. Most importantly, we are ready to move past our struggles. And since I started owning up to my struggles, I've changed the way I view and understand people. Looking from the outside in, as cliche as it sounds, I stopped assuming. All of us have a struggle. And through this change in perspective, I realized that being open will set you free. You need to trust that others will judge you for you and not what you're going through. You see, all these years, I used the cologne as a way to mask my vulnerability. Every spritz brought back a memory from old times, and I wore it every day because the more nostalgic or nervous I was feeling, I'd put on more. The smell reminded me of home. The cologne gave me comfort, and it protected me from my vulnerability. To this day, I still wear that cologne, but for different reasons. As soon as I started owning up to my struggle, I owned what I used to hide it. I wear the cologne today because it is my honest self. It represents who I am, and it represents what I've been through. A lot of people will tell you that the best way to protect yourself from adversity is by hiding it, and it'll protect you from the pain that comes with it. But in reality, the first step of healing is often just opening up. Sometimes you'll need some courage. Sometimes you'll need some hope. and sometimes it's just a bottle of cologne. Thank you.